Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of your Bish Therapist Podcast. I am your host, Melissa Reich, your Bish Therapist, a real-life therapist turned pop culture aficionado, serving clinical interpretations and hot takes on all things pop culture. And today, I am so excited to have my new friend and my next guest from Salty Housewives Podcast. Please help me welcome Dallon to the show. Yay. Hi, Dallon.
Yay. Hi. Hello, everybody.
Welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. I did not expect this, so I'm thrilled.
Well, great. I am so all for just connecting with and having relationships with fellow content creators and, people who love Bravo and all that stuff. So we're thrilled you're here. And I should mention that you are a half of Salty Housewives Podcast. You have a podcast partner. Her name is Megan.
Yes.
And so I just want to acknowledge that she is not here today, but we are so grateful to have you.
Yes. Little Mego, my ego. I love her.
Oh my God. That's such a cute little name. I love that. Mego, my ego. So let's start out. I want to explain to the audience how you and I became connected.
Yes.
And then I'd love for you to take this away. So Dallon sent me the video. So for people who follow me on Instagram at Your Bish Therapist, Dallon sent me a video of Monica Garcia at an event. And at that time, I had no idea what it was all about or who took it. And it was the infamous video where Monica shares her perspective that Bravo wanted her back, but Lisa Barlow and Heather, refused to film and et cetera, et cetera. So the other fun fact I really want people to know about you, though, before we even talk about this video is you live in, the belly of the beast, right?
Yeah, I do. I was born and raised in Salt Lake City. I did branch out for a while, did my thing, rebelled, moved, ran away from home, all the fun shit. But yeah, that is a fun fact. The other fun fact, there's a few fun facts.
Okay.
We'll delve into them because they're part of why the podcast started.
That's correct. Okay, so let me lay this groundwork and then we can get into those fun facts because I know that's really what people want to hear. So the video that is on my Instagram, for those who didn't see it, I don't know how people didn't see it by now, by the way, because it went viral. But Dallon is the person who recorded that video and was at the event. So can you please share with the listeners how that all came to be and just share your story about all that?
Yeah, it's kind of funny. So I'm going to backtrack a tiny bit before this event because I went to a previous event in February.
Mm-hmm.
One of the new housewives for season 5, Bronwyn, hosted a Galentine's event. So I actually, at that event, met a friend of Monica before I even met Monica.
Okay.
I met her friend Canoe. Super sweet. So luckily for me, I was able to get to know her, mingle with her, learn a few things, whatever. So fast forward now to Monica's event. I knew somebody there because I knew going into this event, I wasn't going to know people. And I get enough anxiety as it is going to events where I know people, let alone not knowing anybody. So
preach.
No thanks.
We get
Megan. Yeah. Woo. Megan originally was going to come, but she had something come up. So instead I brought my sister. She was so thrilled to go. I thought showing up on time, we wouldn't be super early. I was wrong. Super early. So awkward. We kind of walk in. The home was beautiful. It's like right on a golf course. like a country club golf course. And me and my sister just hang out. But luckily, Canoe came out, and I was like, oh my gosh, Isabella, that's my sister's name. I was like, I'm going to introduce you. We're going to hang out. And we hung out and we were chilling there. It was a big event. There was a good group of people, but it wasn't like massive. It was when it got announced, Monica announced it on her Instagram, and it was like, hey, reserve your spot, limited spaces, this and that. I have the assumption, because you had your name and everything and they knew who you were. If it was going to be someone they didn't want there, they'd be able to easily like deny it from the impression I got. Just because of how the event was and who was there, I think it was purposely set up for like close friends or trusted individuals because of what was said with the video and everything. It really was just, it was really chill. It was really relaxed. It wasn't like a big to do. And it wasn't like a big, like, everyone give me your attention kind of a thing. It was just, you know what? We're all here to hang out, meet, mingle. I met so many people. People I'd never met before. My sister made friends with these two. I don't remember their names and I feel terrible about it, but I'm sure my sister does. They were sisters who came to the event, and they just clicked with my sister and we hung out for quite a bit. But yeah, that was the first time I met Monica, which was funny because the two of us have now been talking for well over a year. And we've become incredibly close. And it was one of those things like, you know, when you meet somebody, if you get along with them or not. When we first started talking, me and my sister are standing there, and Monica was just like saying hi to a couple people, and she looked over and she saw me and she's like, it was funny. I was like, all right. I genuinely feel like, and I can ask her if she thinks this is not correct. I genuinely feel like if I wouldn't have stepped away and ended our conversation, it would have been easy for her to forget she had other people there, and we would have just kept chatting the entire time. Because like we wouldn't stop. It was cute. It was a fun event.
That's so cute when you find someone who you just vibe with. Essentially what you're saying, you just vibe with, and you're just like,
yeah,
okay, we see each other, right? We see each other. And it's, you know, that's a great thing. And so that was the first event where you met and kind of started fostering your relationship with Monica.
Yes, finally in person. We'd talked for so long. But that was like, finally, face to face. You're real. I'm real. Hey.
Hey. Yeah. So how long between that event and then the second one where the video's from?
So Canoe and I met at Bronwyn Newport, new housewife for season 5. She hosted a Galentine's event at a coffee shop up in Mill Creek, Utah. And that's where I met Canoe. So from February, whenever that was, till August 2nd. So Monica's event was August 2nd.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And here's the interesting thing. So I do just want to say, because you're mentioning certain cast members, we're going to talk about this later, but I want to say now that Andy was on Jeff Lewis Live, and I'm going to talk about that because Meredith Marks was on, right? Andy was on.
Yeah.
And Dallon's making some faces. And Andy claims that he could not confirm any sort of cast member stuff yet. You know, Andy, I know there's always cards held very close to the vest. There, you know, he couldn't say when the trailer was dropping. And so what I'm hearing is, you know exactly who the cast is going to be. I hope we don't get in trouble for talking about this. I'm actually a little nervous, but
I'm not. Oh no. I will preface. I can't confirm or deny this 100%. See, I'm pulling an Andy there. However,
Okay.
all of our OGs full-time. Angie Katsunavis, who I've called, I've called her in the past Angie Classist Navis, because she's classist, whatever. Angie is also full-time, and Mary Cosby again is full-time. But the reason Mary Cosby is full-time, she showed up and those women needed her because she is outrageous. I have a lot of feelings and thoughts about her, but unfortunately, she gives the show what they need, and that's entertainment. So,
and well, let's pause here for a second, because we've talked about this, and my listeners know that I have real, very serious problems with Mary.
Which understandable.
Right. I've done a podcast that I did a deep dive about. Her mom and stepdad did an interview with Up and Adam, and I covered that because
I like
it was
him.
Yeah, I like him too. But I feel like it was such an interesting interview, hearing Mary's mom, but also like the drama in the family and some really serious allegations about Mary. Very serious. So we're not going to talk about all that. If you want to listen to that, go to my episode where I talk about it. But I feel I just have problems with pious people who weaponize religion and then act completely opposite to what it is that they are preaching. That is my main issue with Mary. But what I hear you saying, and I get it because I see this online, everyone just thinks she's hilarious, and she's kooky, and all people have good and bad parts, right? So there's certainly parts to Mary I can appreciate, and I can say, okay, I just have such egregious problems with some of the statements she's made in the past, racist and homophobic and all these different things. So that being said, please continue. So Mary is a full-time, Angie's full-time.
Yeah. As far as I am aware, out of the 3 newbies, the only full-time newbie is Bronwyn. And it does sound like Brittany Bateman. And I don't know if you pronounce her name as Miley or Mealy, but I know it's Meili. Those 2 are friends of. So.
And and maybe you can't even say how you got the information. I mean, but so I know you talked to some of the cast members, but also you're living there. Have you ever seen people filming or experienced kind of watching that?
I've not ever run into them filming, but they do film in some high traffic areas. Personally, I don't feel like they showcase Salt Lake City enough. They do hit some interesting spots, but there is so much to Salt Lake City that's getting missed that really could highlight this place. And I do appreciate the views they give of like the mountains and the whole county and everything. But that upsets me. Like, as someone living here, like, sure, you're showing Park City. The thing with Park City, though, that's not Salt Lake City. That's like 30 minutes east of Salt Lake City, and that's its own community. The other thing with Salt Lake City is the only people who actually live in Salt Lake City are Mary Cosby and Angie Katsunavis.
Isn't that interesting?
Like, Lisa Barlow, she's at least in traffic, like a 30-40 minute drive in a whole different city. Whitney's close to me. I'm out in the same area she is. She's about like a 10-minute drive south of where I am. But no one's actually in Salt Lake City. They're in Salt Lake County.
It's so funny you say that, because Meredith, when she was on Jeff Lewis Live, I caught, the great thing about my therapist brain is there's little throwaway comments that I will just store. And the one thing that I caught was Meredith talking about how she's just getting back from New York, which I read between the lines as So she basically is in New York most of the time, and she comes back to Salt Lake to film. And it's, it's all, there's such a piece to this that's very disingenuous, which I think we all at this point know and realize, but it is such an interesting point. And fun fact for you, my friend, is that when I was young and a little wild, I did a lot of traveling, and I've been to Salt Lake, and I got a tattoo there. Well,
yes, I love all of my tattoos are from Salt Lake, so yay.
And it's so funny. So I was literally walking down the street, and this was many moons ago. I'm 43 now. I was probably in my 20s, and
you do not look 43. What? I thought you were at least my same age. No, I literally thought you were my same age. I'm turning 36 in October.
Oh, God bless you. No, I'm 43. I am middle-aged, honey. But when I was fun and in my 20s, I was walking down the street, and I saw someone with really good ink. And I was like, where did you get that? And they told me, and I literally went there, and I got the tattoo, and it's, on my arm, and it's a butterfly. It's cute because I love butterflies. Cute. It's it's big though. And so, but what I want to say is I can appreciate what you're saying about Salt Lake, because it's such a beautiful place. It's so not what you would think Salt Lake is. And so as someone who's been there and spent time and really loved it, I do agree that I think there's this like classist, like, oh, well, forget Salt Lake, but Park Slope is where it's at, or, whatever. And it's like, no, Salt Lake is a great place. So I can appreciate you really standing up for your hometown. Now, were you born and raised?
Yeah. So I was born in LDS Hospital, which is up in the Avenues, so the Avenues in Salt Lake City is basically the hills in Los Angeles. So if you live in the Avenues, you have money. So Angie Katzenevas, she lives in like the poor section of the Avenues. Mary Cosby, though, she lives in like the rich, like she's right behind our state capitol. Like they're,
well, of course.
So Mary is like rich, and Angie Katzenevas is like, eh.
Yeah. Well, Mary got those riches, in ways that, So, I'd rather live in the poor section and be morally, on point. But I digress. So let's talk about now leading up to, the event and, Monica's event and the whole recording. So can you share a little bit of your experience with all that?
So I'm going to go back to why I even started the podcast. So as a joke during season 3, me and Megan were like, oh, we should do a podcast and talk about Salt Lake City. We didn't follow through originally because obviously here I am now. I was getting so pissed off watching season 4 because I was, shocker, in Utah, born into a Mormon family. I was baptized. I was Mormon. So with my family, though, this could just be a 5-hour long thing. So I'm going to condense it as well as I can. My parents were essentially forced to do what their parents wanted them to do because of how the church and how it's set up. But my parents had agreed with their children. They weren't going to force us to do the things. Like, they weren't going to force me to go on a mission. They weren't going to force my sister to get married. They weren't going to force us to get sealed in the temple and do all this stuff. So we were essentially what you call Jack Mormon growing up. Okay. So the term Jack Mormon, I actually just told this to somebody who was at Monica's event who was like, oh, I heard this term. And I was like, well, let me tell you what it really means. Because they're like, oh, someone said Lisa's Jack Mormon. And I'm like, no, she's just fake. Jack Mormon is you essentially, you believe in your faith. You do your best to follow its teachings, but you don't go to church every week. Maybe you're drinking caffeinated sodas more often than most people. You don't pay your tithing, but you're following the word of wisdom. And the word of wisdom is like bizarre as shit, because don't drink hot beverages because hot beverages are bad for you, but drink all of your dirty Dr. Peppers and extra large Monster Mountain Dew mixes from Fizz Drink because we have a soda shop on every corner, but just don't drink that coffee. Okay, fuck off. Stupid. So Jack Mormon is basically, you're a devout Mormon. You're just not doing the stuff to necessarily maybe make you worthy to go in the temple.
But can I interject here? What it sounds like is just, extremes are never healthy. And it seems like what you're explaining is your family learned a practice of faith that was so special to them, but in ways that you all had flexibility that it sounds like was really helpful.
Well, one thing I learned when I was older, because I was the first one in my family to get my names removed from church records. Mm-hmm. And I've been an atheist for years, just years. And then my sister got her records removed. And then my mom and dad waited until both of their parents passed away to do the same, because they didn't want to deal with like the shame, because that's a huge thing here. If you do that, it's the most shameful and unforgivable thing you can do.
Having your records removed, you're saying?
Yeah. So one thing the church does, and I know this from what my parents have told me, when you get sealed in the temple, they'll give you a temple name. Mm-hmm. So when you get married, like they'll give you a name, and your name, let's say, is Emma. Okay. Mm-hmm. And then they'll give your husband a name, and let's say his name is David. Mm-hmm. They tell you when you die and you go to the gates or wherever you go when you're entering heaven, if you have forgotten your name, you will not be accepted. And with that, they also force that they want you to have all these children and have these families, because family is eternal and your family will be together forever. And once you die and you're reunited, you're going to be together. But if you forget that your heavenly name is Emma, sorry, can't get in.
Wow. Yeah.
So my parents, when they were getting sealed in the temple, it wasn't until after they both, at that point, neither of them wanted to do it. But because of the fear of how they would be viewed if they disappointed their family, they did it.
Well, sure. And I think what you're talking about, there's a whole area of psychology with this topic in terms of religion and how religious mores and norms within a family, it impacts your mental health and well-being so much, because, listen, I respect anybody, and I always say this, whatever anybody wants to practice or not practice, mazel, right?
Yeah.
Do what's best for you.
Exactly.
What I'm hearing is that it creates, especially for you and for some other folks, an undue stress that isn't maybe what spirituality should be about for a lot of people. And so I'm grateful for you talking about your experience with that, because you're not alone. I have a lot of listeners who have talked to me about or DM me about being raised Mormon or growing up in sort of other religious kind of cult type situations. And I'm not calling Mormonism a cult. I'm not saying that. I'm saying
I am.
That's fair. You can say that. You can say that.
I am. The point I was trying to make now with that was the reason I started this Salty Housewives podcast was actually in defense of Heather at first.
Oh, wow.
I know, knowing me, that's shocking. So it was in defense of Heather because in season 4, everything that Heather is telling Lisa is entirely true about the church. Everything Lisa is saying, Lisa is so batshit. So that was how it started. And then I was recognizing things that were happening with Monica. I have a family member who has a mother, just like Monica's mom. And so when I was seeing that play out and just like, whoa, but then also seeing the ugly things people were saying about how Monica was being so bad with that. And I'm like, wait, because I've seen my cousin who for 7 years until my sister was born, that cousin of mine was basically my sister. Like, we've cut that aunt out of our life because of how bad she actually is. So when you see that on camera and you can relate to that so well and just be like, whoa, and like some of the things said, and that was wild. And so then it turned into like, I was sympathizing more with Monica. And then that was when I was kind of learning behind the scenes things through like other people. Because one thing I should also say, I was close with Jen Shah.
Oh.
We were friends. So I was also a friend who was duped by her. Now, we weren't friends that hung out. We became friends through the show. And I was like, I had sympathy for Jen Shah as a person. But also that didn't excuse a lot of what she was doing. So I related to her on that level. And we did get close. There were actually a couple times when I was with one of my best friends downtown, and she'd be downtown too and be like, oh, where are you? Let's hang out. But luckily for me, I was too drunk to actually be like, hey, come over. Yeah. So that never happened.
Whoever thought alcohol would have saved somebody? That's usually not how it goes.
Me. Yeah, I wrote her once in prison. Once. And then that was kind of when I was learning all the stuff with Monica and Cohen, how she really treated people and what was really going on. And then I was like, oh, so I was duped.
Yeah.
I was also duped.
And here's the thing. I feel that is such a terrible feeling to... And here's the thing. I can relate to this on some levels because for me, coming into this arena, I've had a lot of housewives reach out to me. A lot. I've talked to a lot of people, and I'm a vault, and so I'll never say who or what. I mean, people know I've talked to Jackie because I've been on her show twice, but other than that, I'll never say. But the fascinating thing is when you're a regular person interacting with these people you're watching on TV, there is a very interesting psychological experience that takes place, right? But then for me, part of being friendly with a bravoleb also means in the back of my head being super aware that I'm probably being manipulated.
Yes,
that obviously resonated with you.
So I will say one thing. When I say something, like when I'm saying something, especially on here, I have something to back it up. So if for some reason I say something and someone wants to come at me and be like, that's wrong, that's not true. Okay, I have something. Obviously I'm close to Monica. I became close with her. We're friendly. I have a group of really good close friends, and then I have a group of just like friends. She's in my friend group. Like we are friends. There's people that know her that I consider friends. We're not close, but I consider them friends. Whitney Rose, first off, I never liked her. She's never been my favorite. I always got a weird vibe from her from season 1. But it wasn't really until season 4, after reading Heather's book, what sparked this with me was I read her book, and I know Whitney had her issues with what Heather put in her book. But what was happening on the show for me we weren't getting a full picture. None of it made sense. Because I read it. And even when I read that book, I was like, why did Heather put this in? It wasn't anything graphic. It just felt like it crossed a line. Because I just thought to myself, like, if I had an interaction like this with someone I knew and who I claimed was my cousin, I wouldn't share it. I wouldn't say it. I wouldn't essentially make it sound like I had a fantasy I wanted to sleep with my cousin. Like, that's...
Wait,
no.
Stop. Is that what was shared in the book?
The way Heather explains how they met with the boudoir photo session, Heather makes it sound like she had a fantasy of Whitney and like wanted to be a part of it. And it was uncomfortable.
Oh, okay.
Very uncomfortable. Because even when all that was happening, I even said, I'm not going to read the passage of this book because that is not my place, but it's there. And if you want to read it, read it. All that I did after the Bermuda episode ended, where Whitney called her out and they were in the parking lot screaming, I just posted a very simply point blank message of, if this is how Heather treats Whitney on camera, I can only imagine how she treats her off camera. Heather saw that, blocked me. Whitney reached out and in a very condensed version said, you're right. Like,
interesting.
Yeah. I was at dinner with my family. She told me a bunch of shit. I started crying. I looked at my mom and she's like, what's wrong? I said, well, Whitney just responded to my story and I don't know how to handle this. Like, essentially, I had a housewife trauma dump on me. And then we fast forward to today. And because I shared something not so great about Whitney, I didn't agree with it. I just shared it. Right. She unfollowed me, told me she supported me. Following me isn't supporting me. Those are two very different things.
Correct.
But like, all I did was share something someone else said, and now I'm the bad guy. I don't like how that feels. That's weird.
Of course, because that's manipulation. That's not someone who was ever...
Thank you. Exactly.
...a friend.
No.
And that's exactly what I mean by when I am contacted by a housewife or a bravoleb, I have my guard super up because it's like, what do you expect from me? What do you want from me?
Yeah, what do you want me to do? I'm just, here I am.
But a lot of times from me, people want a favorable clinical interpretation. And my soul isn't for sale. It isn't
obviously,
for sale.
Yeah. Obviously, you and I have very different things. My whole podcast is I get drunk, I'm the outrageous one, and Megan keeps me in line. However, like, I don't know what you want me to do because, first off, I have nothing to hide. Second off, I have nothing at stake. And third, if you want me to hide your secrets, I'm not the one to do it.
Correct. And on this podcast, in fact, Dallon, I always talk about how secrets keep us sick. And so I won't hold secret. There's privacy and then there's secrecy, but you're right in that I think a lot of people reach out to us with hopes that we'll do their bidding because let's face it, what we just watched on The Real Housewives of New Jersey, there were plenty of fan accounts that were more than happy to do that bidding. And for us, what I'm hearing is we're not those accounts, number one. And number two, this is why people don't, I'm not well liked, really. And the reason why is because the person I'm accountable to is me. And at the end of the night, when I lay my head down on the pillow, I have to be confident in what I am saying and what I'm expressing. And so I'm not going to stand anybody, number one, because what you're saying and what we're going to talk more about is how just because we're watching these people on TV or they're famous doesn't always mean that they're good people or good people for us.
Right.
And it's very personally, like the flutters I would get when someone would DM me. By the way, Monica just followed me, I assume because of our.
Well, I told her, I was like, hey, I'm going to be on this. She likes you, so we're going to chat. And she's like, oh my gosh, I just followed her. I'm like, okay, great.
Yeah. And I saw that. I was like, Oh my gosh, Monica just followed me. That's
when she
amazing.
told me she followed you, I'm like, awesome.
Yeah, no, that was really sweet. And to be clear, I have always stood up for Monica in that I did an episode where I talked about, I did a huge psychoanalytical therapeutic deep dive on the relationship between Monica and her mom.
Yeah.
And I have a lot of empathy for Monica. And I think, unfortunately, some of her behavior, it makes people discount her. But I don't think that that's fair, but that is her, like, that's for her to deal with, right? But she seems like a lovely person who
I've never met, and well, oh my gosh, one thing my sister said. So my sister was glad I took her to this event because she was like, there's something I've always wanted to tell Monica ever since we saw the reunion. When she met, I might tear up with this because it was so cute. She met Monica and she told her how watching that reunion just upset her so much because no one let her have a voice. No one let her speak. She's like, I just felt so bad for you. Mm-hmm. My sister and Monica were both like tearing up in that moment together. And I'm just like, you're such a good person. Like, this is so sad.
Yeah.
It was painful to watch.
It was painful to watch, but also it's hard because I root for Monica, and sometimes I'm honest that she does things that bite her in the butt. And, you know, I get it. I get it. I understand it. And I think that she does have a really, really wonderful heart. So what frustrated me is the video that you shot. And, you know, I don't know for you, but for me, I got a lot of people in the comments just so nasty. And personally, I have a great community of folks, very tolerant, very loving. And so this was people who didn't follow me. And I was like, oh, the internet is so gross.
Well, the thing I loved, there were people, I mean, the people that actually commented about something involving the video, I would engage with them because at least you were
trolls are rough. I feel that deeply. But I think it's wild when you support somebody, or, you know, at least for me, I have a lot of empathy and compassion for all these people, whether I like them or not. And that's not a popular, it's not a popular stance.
No, but it's funny because, like, sure, I talk my shit on Heather and Lisa, and like, I want them to be exposed and I want like a downfall to happen. But at the same time, wishing harm or ill on them or people around them, that's gross. Yeah. I don't like them. I don't want them to just like die, or like, let's not wish harm on people, but let's just hope people get what's coming to them. Like, there's a big difference.
For sure. Absolutely. And
I've had to be held accountable for stuff. I'm not perfect. I've done some stupid shit. And guess what? I've been held accountable.
Yeah, Dallon, guess what? Welcome to being human. I do stupid shit too. All the time. So going back to the video and, you know, your experience at the event, I've heard you say it was incredibly fun.
So fun.
And Monica, you know, said what she said. But one thing I want to share with the audience and with you, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. So Jeff Lewis had Meredith Marks on the show.
First off, I hate Jeff Lewis anyway.
Okay. Oh boy. Well, people are going to come for you after that.
I hate Jeff Lewis, and I don't care about saying it. He's obnoxious, and he thinks he's a know-it-all, and it's like, buddy, take it down a few notches.
All right. There you go. There you have it. And so Meredith says, oh, and by the way, Andy Cohen, this was the most interesting thing. So Jeff was in New York. He's normally tapes in LA, and so he was in New York, and that's why Meredith was on, because she actually really lives in New York and not in Salt Lake, but whatever.
Exactly. Just call her Jessel Tank. Okay, Jessel Marks.
So Andy comes in, and they immediately, again, bring up Monica's video. And the thing is, I can understand your anger towards Jeff, because he really talks about Monica worse than a dog. Like, he talks about her like she's poor, she's ratchet, she, you know, all of these really pejorative terms.
All she was trying to do was take down Jen Shah, who was defrauding elderly people and treating her friend group like garbage. what did she honestly do so wrong except maybe deceive people to take out Jen Shah? Somebody please clue me in on what's so bad about this. And she has a mother that she's tried to deal with, but you don't like how she's dealing with.
Well, and that's the thing. I think that we're talking about human people, right? And so people do things. And while the account, I get it. I get what you're saying. That doesn't make it okay, but it also doesn't make her an awful person. And I think that I feel that it's a bridge too far for Heather to support Monica, but she can support Jen, with all it. So it just doesn't, it lacks common sense. But here is what Andy said when they brought up, the allegations. Andy, in his very signature annoyed tone, he did a deep sigh and he says, I can't speak to that. But the way that he said it was just like, it spoke a lot without saying a lot. And then Jeff asked Meredith if she would film with Monica. And she says, at the end of the day, that's not my choice. It's up to Bravo and Andy and Shed Media. She continued to say, contrary to what's out there, I don't think any of us have any control over that at any level. Mm-hmm. So knowing Monica, being friendly with her, what are your thoughts on that? Because it seems like Jeff and Meredith are completely saying that that's just not true.
I have simple. It's not like a big outstanding thing. It's just a very simple thought. I mean, for over 15 years, I was a performer. I was a stage manager. I've done theater. Like, I know how things work. I know politics of stuff like that. I get it. Meredith is being smart in her answers. I think she is skeptical of what Monica is capable of, but I don't think that Meredith has completely closed the door. Meredith respects Mary. Meredith and Mary are close. Mary and Monica, they genuinely get along. Like, there is a genuine friendship there. Mm-hmm. Whitney is someone who could have a genuine friendship, I believe, with Monica, but because Whitney is so two-faced and so self-absorbed, there's a darkness, in my opinion, to Whitney that none of us have seen yet, and that makes her untrustworthy. So I think for Meredith, giving that sort of an answer keeps her safe, whereas casting and other decisions are concerned. Because I do fully believe that Bravo did ask Monica back, because Monica and I basically gave them their season 5 opening episode. I mean, that is the fact of the matter. I have 20 plus screenshots of it confirming it. It is what it is. So, I mean, of course, you're going to give that person a chance, but because Lisa and Heather are they're not powerful. They're just aggressive and they're intimidating and they're bullies. That's exactly what they are. So the production company, in my opinion, knows in order to keep the peace, they have to deal with what they're given now. I believe Meredith and Monica, if they did get the opportunity to have like a genuine sit down, they'd be fine. They'd be fine.
Right. And it's funny you say that, because that is the impression that I got from Meredith, that it was a very diplomatic answer and that we all know that there's certain people on the cast who would have no issues with Monica. And we know the two people who, Lisa and Heather, that would. Now, I think fans we're always speculating about, well, how much control do these housewives really have? And so at the end of the day, I feel like, what Andy and Meredith are saying, what Monica's saying, there's kernels of truth in all of it. And we may never get the full story.
Yeah.
But the thing that I want to acknowledge too is that I don't know if I did a good job explaining this, but the video, Monica says that Bravo wanted to bring her back, but that Heather and Lisa refused. And then, Andy and Meredith are like, no, that's not true. So I probably should have said that earlier.
Well,
kind of what
there is one part too of that video that's important, that gives,
please share. Yes.
That puts Meredith and Whitney in a light, which explains what I'm saying about both of them. Okay. Lisa and Heather had investigations opened on Monica. Not only did they have investigations open on Monica with like Bravo and all that, they had them open with Warner Brothers. But the only reason those ended, and they went on for 6 months, the only reason those ended were because Meredith and Whitney went to who they needed to say, there is no truth to this, nothing about this, there's no evidence, this needs to stop. So thankfully, to Meredith and Whitney's account, that ended because they at least had the integrity to be like, there's no substance to this.
Okay. And this is information that you received from Monica?
It's in the video. It's in that
video. Okay.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I watched it, obviously. You sent it to me. I posted it. I watched it. And I guess I'm just having amnesia. Is that which is a common housewives thing, right? Oh, I have amnesia. I don't remember that.
No, it's fine. The two bombs that she drops are that they tried to bring her back, but Lisa and Heather said they would walk. But then the other bomb is that Lisa and Heather opened that investigation. And the only reason that investigation ended was because Meredith and Whitney actually went and said, there's nothing to this.
That's right. And thank you so much, because that second part, I swear I blacked out on. But now, yes, you're absolutely right. I think because so many people were so over-focused on the whole, well, that's not true, Bravo didn't try to bring her back, that, all that other stuff kind of, yeah.
They did. And I mean, there is a lot of other stuff I know, but it's like, obviously I can't say, because it's like the stuff that at that point, eventually people would come after me. I don't have the time for that. I don't make money on this. Are you kidding me? This is a hobby. This is like all of you people go out and party and like do shit. No, this is my hobby. Thank you.
Well, and I think too, to a certain extent, it's like drama is great, but we have to be mindful of how we're participating, because we're regular people with regular lives and, jobs and things like that. And so, for a lot of housewives, talking crap on social media is like the job. But for us, I do find it so interesting how we really have to actively work not to be kind of sucked into that, because it is really easy. And here's the thing. I feel like Salt Lake, I want to get your thoughts on this, because for me, Salt Lake as a franchise always seemed like it didn't quite fit for me, because it seemed like they were fans and not housewives first. Like, I don't know if I'm explaining this right, but I feel like when all the other franchises.
Oh no, I get what you're saying.
You know what I mean? So what are your thoughts on that?
There is just something about, there's something about Utah in general, and also Salt Lake City, that just makes it so fascinating. And it is the fact that everything happening on screen, this is Salt Lake City. Like, just recently, and I can't get into it because if I said it, my friends would hear it and they'd be like, you just shared so much. There was so much going on in my friend group over this last weekend that my friend group was basically experiencing the Bermuda finale and the Tom Sandoval scandal at the exact same time. But that's just like a Tuesday in Utah.
Okay.
The dynamic here, I think another thing that gets lost on people, and it would be more easy to understand if the Mormon church aspect of Utah was reflected accurately in a show. Nothing about how it's reflected on the Real Housewives is accurate. So anyone who thinks they're getting information on the church off that, even though Heather does say stuff that's accurate, there is nothing reflected about the culture or the attitude or anything on that show. The culture impacts so much of what happens in Utah that if you genuinely lived here for a couple of months, you would see how this state is just an entirely different world. Utah could literally just be another country on its island somewhere else because of how much influence the church has on politics and social construct and zoning and just everything. And it's one of those too, where even you have the church culture, the people born and raised in it. You have the church culture of the people who were converted and moved here thinking that this was some sort of Zion. It was some sort of paradise. And then they realize, oh, these are the crazy Mormons. And then you have the people who were born and raised here who were either part of the church and left it, or you had the people born and raised here who were never part of the church but stuck with it. And then you also have the transplants to Utah who are made up of every different culture, religion. Mm-hmm. It genuinely is unexplainable. And the one thing I will tell people, with like the South and that whole culture and their views and how dangerous some of them are, Utah, the best way to explain it to people is Utah does belong in the deep South, but with the views of Mormonism and how outrageous they are, in my opinion, they're a bit more far-fetched and worse than like evangelical Christianity. It's just the hold it has is unmatched. Like they make up barely 1% of the religious population, but the way you speak to anybody who's Mormon, they are fully convinced the world knows about them. And it's like, sweetie, you are insignificant. But in Utah, it's...
Right. I think what's so important is what you're talking about is that every geographical location, there are different cultural expectations and societal norms and mores and all this stuff. And so what you just said about Salt Lake City makes so much sense to me as to why this franchise feels the way it does. It feels so different than all the other ones. And that is such a wonderful explanation. So thank you for that. It really does make a lot of sense. And I can understand how that kind of, they talk about separation of church and state. And it sounds like in Utah, that's like...
No, the church runs the state. So
the church runs the state. Right. So, yeah. So that is such a fascinating, that's just so fascinating. And you know what, Dallon, the other thing I wanted to, I don't know if you knew this, there were two things about Meredith Marks that they brought up on Jeff Lewis Live that I thought were so fascinating. And I don't know if you ever heard this, but the one was that Meredith had a stalker for 2 years before she was even famous.
I did hear this. Yeah.
I was like, holy crap. And of course,
this is where I believe maybe she lived in Utah, because I've actually had stalker situations. And when I was in theater shows, I'd have to tell like the production crew, like, hey, I have a stalker. They might be coming to the show. Keep an eye out, blah, blah, blah. So, I mean, I've had stalkers. I'm not famous. So maybe she has lived here. Maybe we have the same stalkers. Are Meredith and I connected by the same stalker?
Perhaps.
Hey, stalker, if you're listening, my address is no.
Beep. Okay.
I'm kidding.
I know. I'm just kidding. And then the other thing that she claimed was, which I feel was so fascinating, is that reality TV saved her marriage.
To this day, I believe all that marriage nonsense from season 1 was just like so manufactured. I don't, but I'm sorry. Do you see Seth and Meredith? Do you see them? Mm-hmm. We see them, right? We see them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. We see each other. Okay. I got you.
We see each other.
And I'm sure you'll have a thought on this too. Meredith was also claiming that when they went to the finale where it was found out, that Monica was, partly behind Reality Von Teese, she was saying that Heather had suspicions, but it wasn't confirmed up until the trip. And the way that she said it, I don't know. My therapist brain was like computing and but the look on your face tells me that you have some thoughts on that too.
Heather had no suspicions. She just ended up working with Tanisha. Tanisha was a jealous ex-friend of Monica who was upset that she got on the show. And instead of being an actual friend and having your friends back, Tanisha saw this moment where, ooh, maybe I can have a shot at fame, and gave Heather all this information. And I mean, it didn't really work, but now you just have this weird Salt Lake City turmoil that is really just nonsense. Mm-hmm. But I think the funniest thing about this is Heather tried so hard for this takedown because Jen Shah did not give her that black eye first of all. It's a convenient story. It's a very convenient story. There's a whole different situation to that. That's not my place to speak on. Okay. Jen did not give her that black eye. Heather is still friends with Jen. Whitney visits Jen in prison, apparently. And that's not a big secret thing. I'm saying allegedly. There's another podcast that reports on this.
Okay.
If you listen to it, you know who it is. I'm not going to be the one to say it. But if you listen, I'm sure a lot of you do, you know. Whitney's basically shaped what her and her husband do off of what Jen Shah has done, which is another reason I can no longer trust Whitney, which is one reason I shared on my Instagram today what Whitney said when one of my friends had posted to Lisa, because Lisa insinuated like, oh, well, Monica filmed with Jen Shah, so like goes after like. But my friend was like, bitch, that was a production thing. But then Whitney decided to message me privately and say, well, all of those ladies were filming with Jen as long as they could. Then she's like, oh, I'm so glad you didn't share this because of the content. Bitch, you crossed me now. I'm sharing it today, and I shared it. So everyone can see that message that Whitney sent me where Whitney flat out said all of the women on that show filmed with Jen Shah, the criminal, for as long as they can. Yeah, for some reason, Monica's the bad guy. Get bent. Right. Come on.
Right. And so I definitely feel that is what I feel in terms of that doesn't make a lot of logical sense to me. It's certainly not apples and oranges, right? You can't compare apples and oranges, but there's a thread between both situations that just doesn't track. It just doesn't make sense. So, Dallon, you have more than spilled the tea today. Lots of stuff discussed today. I just want to thank you so much for being here. And of course, please plug, promote, let everybody listening know, where can they find you? Where can they find the pod? What are your socials? Let's tell everybody, please.
Yes. So Salty Housewives Podcast. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Music, Apple Podcasts. We all know that though. iHeartRadio, and Amazon Music. We have a full recap of The Real Housewives of Salt Lake City Season 4 up. There are a couple episodes of me introducing Megan to The Real Housewives of Atlanta because that is my all-time favorite franchise. I will die on that hill.
Me too!
Yeah, no. Yes, Atlanta is my number one. My number one.
I swear to you. Me too. Oh my gosh.
Yes.
That is so funny.
And I will say, even the worst of the worst, there's not a woman on that show that I do not like. I love every one of them, flaws and all.
Same. And can I interject 1 second? I don't stand anyone except for Cynthia Bailey. Cynthia Bailey is my
love her. I love her. I think my queens are her, obviously. I feel like she was not appreciated enough, and she needs to come back. Eva needs to come back.
Oh, agree. Love Eva.
Love her. Yeah, no. So there are the Atlanta episodes where I introduced Megan to it, and there is a collaboration I did with New Jersey with the Who Said Are You On podcast, but then I stopped it because I was sick of New Jersey and no. Yeah, and then I have a couple of solo Orange County recaps, but I stopped them now because I'm too busy. So for now, the podcast for season 2 is on pause, but we will be back in full force with Salt Lake City and Atlanta. You can follow us on Instagram, Salty Housewives Podcast on Instagram. Very active on there. That I run it like a second job. You can also follow Megan X Golden on Instagram, and you can follow my personal page, Dallon.Thorpe on Instagram.
Beautiful. And, listen, when Salt Lake comes back, I think we should do another ep and maybe even have Megan on. Maybe we can do a little something, because here, I'm going to be honest. I have such an issue with Mary that I almost wasn't. Are you okay?
Thunder. It scared me. We're all good. I was like, whoa.
I have such problems with Mary, but now I'm just like, I have to watch the season to see, what's going on. So I am going to watch it. I am going to cover it. I didn't cover Jersey because it was just like, ugh, I can't. But Salt Lake, yeah, I'm going to come back to that. So I think maybe we have another collaboration in our future, my friend.
I like that. I think Megan would enjoy that too.
Okay, great. So I just want to thank you so much. This has been such an enlightening conversation, and different for my listeners too, because normally, I do a lot of talk about psychology and, different things, but there's a lot of tea today, and that's normally not what this is, but I'm blown away. I'm processing it all.
I'm just a little pharmacy tech in training, and I watch Bravo for fun. So
I love that.
You're just going to get gay gossip.
Is there any better kind?
No.
All right, my friends. So everyone listening, please check out my friend Dallon. Please check out Salty Housewives Podcast. Please, like and, give a 5-star review and all that good stuff. Please also don't forget to follow Your Bish Therapist on Instagram. Please give the podcast a 5-star rating. And next week, I'm going to be doing an episode covering Surreal Life Villa of Secrets with Vanderpod Recaps Lindsay Lime. Have you been watching that, Dallon?
I refuse. There's no way. I can't. No, I can't. Okay. All the clips I've seen, I'm just like.
I swear to you, I respect you 1,000%. I feel like it's a sleeper hit. It's been so well for me psychologically. People have to remember, I don't know if I didn't have the psychological component, if I would find it as fascinating.
Okay,
but
fair.
There's a lot of, you know what I'm saying, clinically, that it's my jam, and that's probably why you don't love it.
I can only watch so much reality TV because my personal life is like a reality TV show. So like I have to limit it.
Oh, of course. You don't want to be an overload. Yeah.
No.
All right, my friends. So for today, we're going to say goodbye. Thank you so much for listening. Please take care of yourselves and each other. And I'm just going to read my disclaimer real quick, especially after this ep. Disclaimer: posts are not intended to diagnose, treat, or provide medical advice. Your Bish Therapist is for entertainment and informational purposes only. The podcast, my opinions, and posts are my own and not associated with past or present employers, any organizations, Bravo TV, Greyheart Productions, or any other television network. The information in YBT Podcast and on its social media is provided for general informational purposes only and is not intended to diagnose or treat. Please do not act or refrain from acting based on anything you read, see, hear on YBT Podcast or associated social media. Communicating with YBT via email does not form a therapeutic alliance. Melissa, operator of YBT, is unable to provide any therapeutic advice, treatment, or feedback.